is an important skill to have. Obviously there's a lot of lines on a boat, and if they're not finished right at the end, they'll unravel and you'll kind of be wasting the line that you bought or you're using. It's a good skill to have. It's also kind of connecting you back to a lot of nautical history. Whipping is a sort of traditional skill that's been out there for a long time. So a couple things you're going to need to whip line. Something like a cutting board or something like that you can work with. I had this white kind of electrician's tape. Really try to get the best kind of white tape you can find. If you can find a rigger's tape, that's even better. Sharp pair of scissors, a sharp knife. You'll want to probably get a package of different size needles, and you want to use the smallest needle that you can possibly use on the thread. And then the actual whipping line. So this is a sort of a thin line here. I'll try to include links to the sizes and where to buy this at. But this is the thin one, and this black one's a little bit thicker. I use this on a larger line, and this smaller white thinner line I use on thinner line. You'll want a lighter or some sort of way to melt the end, and I kind of put this all together in what's called a Ditty Bag. I've got lots of goodies in here, more tape, a palm for pushing the needle through if it's too stiff. I've also got some liquid whipping that you can put on the end, lots of good stuff. So it's good to have a little Ditty Bag to hold all this stuff together. So why whip the end of a line? When you buy line in a store, they'll typically, they'll cut it off a spool and they'll use a heat knife to cut it. So an example of that, of what you're going to get from a store, is going to be a line like this. It's going to have probably tape wrapped around the end, and the end of it's going to be melted. Yeah, and this will work for a short period of time, but eventually that melting isn't enough to hold. In this case, this double braid line is not enough to hold the inner core and the outer cover together. The inner core is going to pull loose, or the outer cover is going to pull, and you're going to end up with separation at the end of the line. So that's why whipping is really important. You can do it on double braided line. You can also do it on sort of traditional 3-strand rope. This is one I did years ago, whipping the end, and this is just the whipping itself. It's not finished off with tape, but I'll show you how to do that. But this works fine as well. It gets a little fuzzy at the end, even if you try to melt it, but it still works well. So that's a little bit of background, and I'm sorry if you're hearing music in the background. It's beach party night here on Elba Island in Italy, so I'm contending with the warm-up of the R&B band on shore. So, all right, well, let's get right into it. Okay, so we're ready to get started here. I've taken my line here and I've marked with a Sharpie roughly where I want to make the whipping, and then I'm going to cut the line on that mark. So I've got my whipping line here. I'm going to take for this 1/4 inch line, I'm going to take probably a little over a foot of whipping line, maybe 18 inches. Cut a piece off for that. And then I've got my needle here. Again, it's good to have a variety of needles depending on what thread you have and all that. So I thread the needle, and I'm going to start with my first stitch. I'm going to go through right through the center of the line. I'm trying to go through the cover of the double braided and through the core. So I'm going to push straight through, as you can see here, and out the other end. And I'm going to leave a tail of about 3 to 4 inches long. And I'm going to take the needle, thread out of the needle. And for this part, you're just wrapping around the line. And I'm wrapping around and going this direction eventually with the wraps, so that I'm covering the little bit of the tail, so that gets fastened down tight. And you want to get these wraps as tight as possible. So I'm wrapping around and trying to hold it as I grab the other side, and I keep going around I'm trying to get to roughly a width of about the same width of the line. So I'm trying to get the width of all the wraps to be about 1/4 of an inch or so. And I've got, you know, maybe 6 inches left of this tail, this line, so that's about right. So I'm going to hold my finger on those wraps so they don't slip out of the way. And I'm going to re-thread the line through the needle. Helps to have about two more sets of hands on this, but okay, so I've got the thread through the needle. And now what I'm going to do, so I've got all these wraps right here, and I got the last wrap on the left hand side. I'm going to push this needle through again through the center so that it passes right through the center of the line, through the cover and through the core. And sometimes it's hard to get this needle through the line since the rope is being squeezed tight, and so you push down on your wood block, or if you have a palm, you can use this by putting it around your hand and shoving through with this hard surface there. But for now, I'm just going to push down and have the needle come right back out on the top. So I pull that tight, and now I'm going to cross over. So I'm going to cross over all these lines, these wraps, and I'm also going to go at a little bit of a diagonal and start here, and then again go straight through the widest part. And you want to try to come up as close as possible to your first wrap. You don't want it way over here. Okay, so now you can see I have a crossing thread there. This is just to kind of hold all the wraps together, and I'm going to go across again at a diagonal and down through, in this case up, to the other side. I'm always trying to pass through you're trying to pull through the cover and the core to hold it all together. And then I'm going to go diagonally again and do one more of those. So now I've got, I'll pull the thread all the way through. I've got both ends here. And for the last part, so you've got 3 crossing stitches there. And I'm going to make a square knot here with these 2 pieces at the end. Trying to hold the knot it's hard to get the knot to really stay tight, but there we go. And so now I've got a square knot in the end, and I'm just going to re-thread each one of these pieces and tuck the thread away. So I'm gonna make a stitch kind of from the end of the wraps diagonally through and just have it come out on the other side. This is not really a strength stitch, it's just to tuck away the extra line. You'll see how it kind of buries it and gets rid of that so that it can't be loose and shake out that square knot and start shaking out the rest of the wrap. So again, I'm just shoving it through at an angle. Comes out there. Put the needle down. I'm going to trim off the extra. There we go. And I'm pretty much done with the core part. The last part now would be to wrap this with tape and then cut off the end. I have an extra piece here that's maybe about, I don't know, 5 feet long that could be used for something else. So I'm actually going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to whip a section to the right of that mark, and then I wrap the whole thing with tape and I cut it right where that Sharpie was, and I've got 2 finished ends to the rope. So I'm going to do that. And I'll do it this time with, I'm going to use the black whipping line. This is a little bit thicker, but you'll be able to maybe see it better. Okay, so I've got my black whipping on this side with 3 crossing threads. A little harder to see, I know, but for the white one with the 3 crossing threads, square knot, and the 2 tails buried. The only part left now is to wrap this with tape. I use as close as I can get to a good quality white tape. So I'm going to wrap this tight with the tape, and then I'm going to cut right down the middle in between the whippings. So I just kind of roll it really tight, pulling the tape around what we just created. If you pull it tight enough, you can see where you whipped the line and know better in terms of where to cut. Okay, that's pretty good there. Take my scissors. There we go. And a very sharp knife. And I'm going to cut right down through the middle here. I can see a little raised ridge where I had done those cross stitches, so I'm going to cut right here. And there you go. You got your ends. The very last step here is to burn the ends of these. We're in an anchorage here where a little bit of a breeze out, so I don't know if I have any luck with the lighter, but we'll see here. Okay, and we'll try lighter number 2 here. There we go, getting a flame now. The other thing you do is you can do this on a stove with the burner on the stove. That gets a lot of heat going. If you do this too long, it'll start to burn the tape. You don't want that to happen, but you're trying to melt the core there. Okay, good enough. So that's it. I've got this line with the whipping and this one with the whipping, and that's how to whip a line on board a boat. Okay, that's it. I hope you enjoyed that video on how to whip lines on your lines on a sailboat. It's a good skill to have, and it's a good way to pass time while you're moving along and you got 15-20 minutes to do something, and it's very helpful to keep your lines from unraveling in the end. So hope you enjoyed the video.